It's all an act with this guy. He would have you believe that if he committed me to secrecy and forced me to take an oath of silence, that would somehow close the Beijing police stations here in Canada?
Mr. Speaker, any serious politician in this place should understand how the Security of Information Act actually works, particularly someone who has sat in cabinet and who was Canada's Minister of Election.
They don't have to brief me on the laws. I've actually read them, Mr. Speaker. Section 12.1 of the National Security and Intelligence Committee Act says that I would not only be silenced from speaking about matters broadly, but I would be prevented from debating them on the floor of the House of Commons.
Hiding behind, quote, a veil of ignorance is very characteristic for a leader who has no interest in actual facts. There's nothing stopping him right now from getting cleared, briefed, and disagreeing with the former Governor General's conclusions if he so chooses.
All Canadians are entitled to the facts, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we want a public inquiry. We know that Beijing gave $140,000 to the Trudeau Foundation. We know that when the scandal broke, he named Mr. Rosenberg to look into it. Rosenberg is with the Trudeau Foundation. When the scandal exploded further, he named Mr. Johnston, also a member of the Trudeau Foundation. And what did he do? He named another judge from the Trudeau Foundation to look into the conflict of interest. Is the Prime Minister afraid of a public inquiry because he's run out of members of the Trudeau Foundation to run it?
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the level to which the Leader of the Opposition on this very serious issue has nothing to offer other than partisan attacks and personal attacks, rather than actually dealing with the substance of this serious issue.
Speaker, if the facts that I have just quoted from the BC Centre for Disease Control are false, then maybe he can tell me what the real numbers are. I've asked him, and given that he wants to bring in a 61 cent a litre carbon tax, increase gas and diesel prices by 61 cents a litre on the farmers that produce the food and the truckers that bring it to the grocery store. Yep. How much will that tax increase add to the monthly cost of groceries for the average Canadian family? How much?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What Canadians know clearly is the inaction by a decade of a Conservative government and the continued resistance of Conservatives to take action on fighting climate change is costing them incredible amounts. How many homes have been lost in Nova Scotia? How many people affected and evacuated across Alberta? How many people in the Northwest Territories affected now? In New Brunswick, people in central Canada worried about forest fires coming there in the coming weeks and months. The reality is extreme weather events are getting more and more expensive for Canadians, which is why we need to continue to lead on climate change while supporting Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, all of those things have happened with his carbon tax in place. His carbon tax has done nothing to reduce emissions, let alone to stop storms and other weather events. So that is nothing more than another act from this Prime Minister. Let's get back to the question. My question was very specific. We know now that a British Columbia family has to spend $1,200 a month on groceries just to feed their kids. He wants to raise the tax up to 61 cents a litre on the farmers and truckers who bring us our food. How much will that add to the grocery bill of an average family? How much?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's the problem with the Leader of the Opposition. He is in love with the sound of his own voice and his own attacks, but he doesn't actually check the facts.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, here's the issue with the Leader of the Opposition, who's so in love with the sound of his own voice that he doesn't actually check the facts.
So the high school drama teacher over here accuses others of liking the sounds of their own voices. This from a guy who, if he were made of chocolate, he would eat himself. But we don't want him do that until after he answers my question, which I keep asking.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was a high school teacher before getting into politics, and I'm having a little trouble remembering what exactly the job that the Leader of the Opposition had before getting into politics. Mr. Speaker, we have a plan to fight climate change. We have a plan to continue to move forward on supporting...
Yes, and he left right in the middle of the semester, and I'm having trouble remembering why. Now, Mr. Speaker. He certainly was not a math teacher. His own finance minister says the deficits pour fuel on the inflationary fire, right before she introduced $60 billion more deficit spending measures. How much will that add to the inflation rate Canadians have to pay? How much?
I have a hypothesis for you, Mr. Speaker. Why you're seeing this behavior in the House? Have we ever seen a Prime Minister who has so little worthiness of the functions that he occupies? Illegal election funding, industrial espionage, Trudeau Foundation, contempt for intelligence services, and many, many other problems. We know so much about the reasons for which we should be asking for a real public inquiry, not for this buddy-buddy act with his friend. When will this Prime Minister put an end to these policies that are harmful for Quebec and very, very, very helpful to China? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Bloc Québécois just said, we know plenty about it. Well, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't actually know plenty about it because he has refused to be briefed on the confidential information from our security agencies. He has turned down the opportunity to hear the facts about the real issues here. Instead, he prefers to engage in this kind of partisan mudslinging. And he likes to keep picking fights with us. Whereas Canadians, all Canadians, including Quebecers, deserve to have the representatives take the matter of foreign interference seriously, and that's what we're doing.